what research in the past decade has shown is that very few of the people that enter that traditional AIDA funnel uh, via awareness really ever get to the part of the action. They don't do anything. There are a lot of people out there who have rejiggered the the I put air quotes funnel, so that it's not really a funnel. It's a different kind of a model. It doesn't have the kind of straight line, go here, go there. Um, when you when you also combine that with the fact that the loyalty paradigm has shifted dramatically as well. I mean,
Tell me
one
what
of
you mean by that. I mean,
well,
we've touched on it before, but let's bring some clarity to that.
okay, so I'm willing to bet that that I would say 90%, say the majority of people, 90% of the people in our business, when you speak about loyalty, what they are looking at is, I buy this, I won't buy anything else. Thank you very much. It is, it is reminiscent of, the Coke, no Pepsi. I will drink one, I won't drink the other. And there was a time when that was real, but not really since the 1970s. Have you seen that kind of loyalty model? Doesn't exist anymore. And now the difficulty, of course, is that if you go, well, I'm loyal to something, it does in fact mean that my initial behavior is going to be directed to the brand to which I'm telling you I'm loyal. Uh, I have to actually avoid, and even knowing what I know, I have to avoid saying, I'm aware of these things, these brands, and I'm making a choice. I am in fact making a choice, but I'm making the choice on the basis of the ability for a brand to meet my expectations. And we've talked about expectations. We've talked about expectations before. There are reasonable measures and unreasonable demands that consumers make in terms of what they expect, and what they look at in terms of how a brand measures up to what they expect is the way in which they're going to make their decision to be loyal. I mean, it's the way the marketplace works, because I would remind you that there was a time when the Sony Walkman, was something that everyone owned, because, oh my God, you could transport music and books and take it with you, and go walk about. And that was the most successful thing in the world. Um, until something about 3 inches, 3 inches tall and an inch wide, the iPod came along, and now, someplace in the back of some drawer or desk someplace, everyone's got an iPod. Not doing it because the their expectation had shifted the minute that you put it into a phone. Now you have everything in the phone. And so the technological changes also shift your expectations. And now people look and they go, okay, here's what I want. And there are the there are the juggernauts, what we call the loyalty juggernauts, who have just the word that I used was transmute. I mean, I don't know what else it is. Have they they have their market share, they have their awareness, because I'm willing to grant awareness to anyone out there that's a reasonable competitor. Um, but somehow they're better meeting expectations than someone else. And I can't, I don't measure this. I can't measure this in the evaluation that we do with the customer loyalty engagement index every year. But I'm also willing to believe that it's the nanosecond first brand that people think of when they're now making a decision to shop. And you see it within the categories. And of course, there are nuances to this. I mean, you know, there are the you know the brands that touch. You know, they're the brands that are one and two when it comes to loyalty in a category. Although that there are just and these things shift. But there are also consistencies. There are also consistencies that irregularities that you see in terms of things. I mean, you know, who owns who owns the smartphone category? Well, yeah, it kind of depends. I mean, if you know, without doing your research on, I should have asked the question, who owns the search category? Without doing your work on Google and looking it up, you're either going to say Samsung or you're going to say Apple, and you'd
Right.
be,
Right.
I mean, you know, without quibbling about, you know, precise market shares, that's how that's going to work. So you're able to transmute what is reasonable market share, um, you know, a given in terms of awareness, and then the loyalty factor into what now gives you absolute market dominance. And and yeah, everyone's doing, you know, the retailers all have online stuff, but uh, you know, my advice is don't bet against Amazon. I mean, they're the loyalty juggernaut in terms of that category. And that's what you see. And it again, the expectation issue. I went back to look at some stuff. I sent you some preliminary information. The ability to meet expectations that people hold for their categories, for what they ideally want, even if it's even if it's totally undeliverable, it is emotionally what people want. And if you look at not just the brands that do well, because they're, you know, you look at a category, there are a lot of you know, there are two or three or four brands in a category that, you know, when you read the financials, they're all you know, they're doing well. Um, but when you look at it from a loyalty perspective, and you look at it from the perspective of how well are they meeting expectations, that range gets really, I mean, really tight. You know, so if you think of the ideal at 100%, um, since a lot of the drivers for loyalty are emotional, it's often hard to articulate, or people don't want to articulate it. But with the right measures, you can get those. I mean, the psychological measures help do that. Um, the range, the lowest market dominant loyalty juggernaut is meeting expectations by 80%.
That's the bottom of the loyalty juggernaut barrel right there.
the very bottom. And then, you know, the categories are different because that's the nature of categories. But, you know, you look at the average of all the other brands that compete within their categories, and the average is about 65, 66%. And so there's a 15-point difference between 65 and 80. And 80 is the bottom of the I don't know, you know, it's an oxymoron. The worst, best
Right, right.
loyalty brand is at 80%. You know, and the top goes up, you know, goes up as high as you know, I think 95, 96% if you look at, you know, you look at someone like Apple. I think Apple's at 95%. And these all correlate with the thing is that their ability to meet the expectations correlates with profitability, with share of market. I mean, very, very highly. Now, those are separate financial, you know, financial market measures, and they count, of course, but this allows you to see where a brand is going to end up. I mean, these metrics correlate extraordinarily highly with how people will behave toward a brand. And generally speaking, they're, you know, 15, 18 months out in terms of predicting where these brands are going to end up.
As of today, there are 1,237 technologies on G2 listed as loyalty platforms. There are 560 loyalty technologies on Capterra. My question is, how do you navigate all that? The answer, if you're an enterprise level user, is that there are a handful of organizations out there that are happy to help you figure that out. But if you're a mid-market user, well, good luck. There's a massive pool of options, features, integrations, stack dependencies, and complications, an almost innumerable amount of stuff to sort through just to arrive at some sort of shortlist. That was the thinking behind Trift. Trift, Trifft, is a smart loyalty platform designed from the ground up to provide mid-market retail and restaurant operators with a full-featured yet easy-to-use loyalty solution. It was built by a team of loyalty veterans who saw that while platform sales were going up, usage and adoption were stagnant because the technologies were too complicated, had too many features, needed too much manpower, required too much IT input, etc., etc., etc. Trift's entire reason for being is to help mid-market businesses deliver on their complex loyalty strategies without the tech bloat that so often accompanies such things. Smart, huh? That's Trift. Smart loyalty. Trift. Trifft.io. I hate to make this a sporting event,
Okay.
but I love making it a sporting event. You know,
Okay.
what happens with this research that you've been doing now for 27 years is it's inevitable that people like me would want to compare this year to last year. What were the biggest movers? Who are the winners and losers? In terms of loyalty juggernauts, who are they? And maybe and I don't know if your research shows this necessarily, but why are they? So there's a lot to talk about there. But would you mind if we kind of just went through some of the bigger categories and talked about who the winners are? And if you have it at your fingertips, at what level they're meeting customer expectations? I mean,
Sure. Sure.
that would be huge because I think putting some context to this is really eye-opening.
Okay. Let me just also say that what we've been seeing over the past 5 years, and it's not just calendar time that you need to look at, it's, you know, consumer development time, it's technology. You know, if you stand here in 2024 and look back and go, yeah, things have changed. I mean, people are willing to recognize that yes, things are different. Um, we see that the the brands that consumers, I want to just make clear that we don't rank these on our own. These are all based on consumer assessments. Um, the brands that consumers rate as number one in terms of their ability to meet expectations and therefore the brands to which they are most loyal, the shifts in categories have decreased over time, meaning that while we have had what I call loyalty, um, perennial loyalty brands. I mean that they have people who were loyal to them 20 years ago, and they're still loyal to them. Although I think the range is probably uh, a 15 to 20-year range, where we've got some that have every year show up as number one. The changes within the categories have decreased, meaning that the brands are holding on to their loyalty positions more and more. And that's because I think those are the ones that it isn't accidental. They are either innovating in ways that are meeting customer expectations, or they accidentally do something either with product, service, or even in messaging that convinces consumers that they are better placed to be able to meet their expectations. So there have been fewer shifts, although there are shifts. I mean, we do see things moving around.
Can we talk about what some of those shifts were? Some things that you saw that may have been kind of standouts from last year's CLEI.
Well, yes. For example, we've seen shifts in standings regarding things like in the category like streaming video. Um, initially, we initially I think that the aggregation of more and more data was something that more and more entertainment offerings was something that people um, gravitated toward and thought, this is what I want. I want more. And I think that that's been fading out a little bit. Um, I think that what they are looking for is, yes, entertainment, but they want to be able to have it more simply delivered. They want it more simple in terms of what the choice is. So I think those values have moved things for folks. Um, I think that you see the shifts in terms of the electronics category, for example. Again, a certain desire for uh, intuitive applications for electronics. So I mean, not sexy, but important. I mean, Konica Minolta does something with multifunctional printers in offices, and I'm going to get in trouble with them. The name itself is scary. Multifunction, multifunctional. So yeah, and there are the folks out, I'm betting a lot of the folks out there like me, we're not Luddites, but neither are we, techno intelligent folks. And we want the stuff to do what we want it to do, but we want it simple. And Konica Minolta has been able to do that as well.
Do you happen to recall where they ended up in this year's rankings?
Well, yeah, in their category, they were number one, and I think the number was they met expectations by 90%. So that, again, most of the most of the brands that ended up as, well, these juggernaut loyalty juggernauts just started meeting expectations. Now, categories, there's Coca-Cola is different from Konica Minolta. I mean, the soda category is different. But what you are able to see within the category is that, yes, there's been growth. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, expectations, would that we were able to say, okay, we measured these expectations in 2010 and that's it. They're not moving, they're not going anywhere. We got it nailed. And the difficulty is, of course, that the expectations grow constantly, um, significantly, and the brands, I mean, partially because if you rely on a linear model like a like the funnel, a purchase funnel, or the AIDA model, or oh my God, everyone knows my name, um, manage to keep up by any place, depending on the category, between 5 and 9%.
And how
Well,
fast would you say, if there is such a thing as an average or a mean, like how fast overall are consumer expectations rising?
34, 35% on average.
That's a big gap.
Yeah, I mean it's just, and now, again, we've talked, the gap provides an opportunity. I mean, consumers are basically saying to you, hi, here's what I would like. This is what my ideal is. This is what I expect when I go out and look for something. It seems prima facie evidence that what I'm going to do in terms of my behavior is I'm going to give my business to the brand that is responding to what I desire.